In this video, we're going to be learning about multiplying and dividing polynomials to develop a smart polynomial equation. Polynomials have been used for centuries to explore and describe relationships. We will first go over all the math basics needed to learn this topic, then at the end of this video, we're going to be enhancing our knowledge with programming inside of Python. So throughout this video, we're going to be covering the following topics. We will first be introducing problems that will help us to learn about multiplying and dividing polynomials. Second, we're going to be going over how to multiply polynomials. Third, we're going to go over how to divide polynomials. And fourth, we're going to be creating a code for multiplying and dividing polynomials using Python, and also for plotting our polynomials on a graph as well. So just before we get into this video, let's look at this landscape design problem. So a landscape designer wants to use polynomials to calculate the total area of a landscape project where the length and width are given. And the values of the length is 3x squared minus 5x plus 9, and the values of the width is 4x. And let's just say that the property is the square size length represented as capital L. So we already know that the landscape length, which is the lowercase l, is 3x squared minus 5x plus 9, and we already know that the width is 4x. And let's also just say that the variable x is 25% of the capital L, and the variable x can change depending on the size of capital L. So the only reason why we have the variable x there is to just prove our smart polynomial and to show our smart polynomial. So in this first problem, we're going to be needing to find the equation of a smart polynomial that describes the total area of the landscape. And a smart polynomial in this example means that one polynomial equation will give the area of any value of x. So that's our first problem that will help us to learn about multiplying polynomials later in this video. And now we're going to be going over another problem that will help us for dividing polynomials. So for our second problem, we have a triangle shape. And in this problem, we're going to need to find the height of the shape. And we can call this shape B. And also in this problem, the things that are already given are the area and the base. And the area is equal to 3x squared plus 6x, and the base is given as 3x. So we're going to be solving these problems as we go along with learning about how to multiply and divide polynomials. So let's start with the multiplication of polynomials. So if we remember taking back from the first problem, from the shape A, the length was given as L is equal to 3x squared minus 5x plus 9, and the width was given as B equals to 4x. So here we're going to be first solving this problem by hand, and then at the end of this video we're going to be solving and also plotting this problem with Python as well. So let's get into starting this problem. So with this problem, we're going to be covering over 3 different steps that will help us to learn about multiplying polynomials. And these 3 steps are first the distributive law, second is adding the like terms, and the third is simplifying. So let's get started with the distributive law. So what we first need is our formula for area, which is area is equal to length times width. So we first need to fill in our values for that formula there. So once we fill in our values, we get this. So then we have area is equal to 4x, then open up a bracket, 3x squared minus 5x plus 9, and then close the bracket. So this, since we filled in our values, now we can do our distributive law, and since we see that the 4x is outside of the bracket, we have to distribute that 4x to each single one of the terms inside of the bracket. So inside of the bracket, we see that there are 3 terms, so we're going to need to distribute the 4x to all 3 of them. So for the 3x squared, we're just going to multiply that by 4x, and then we're going to do plus 9 multiplied by 4x, and then we're going to do minus 5x times 4x. So basically what we did here is that we just multiplied each single term by 4x. So this is how our equation looks like after distributing everything. So we have 3x squared times 4x plus 9 times 4x minus 5x times 4x. So that's basically our first step, and we just distributed the 4x to every single one of the terms. And step number 2 is to add each single like term. But in this example here, we don't have any like terms, so we don't have to add any of them. But if we did have like terms, then we would have to add them. But since we don't have any like terms, we're just going to skip this step, and we're going to move on to the simplifying one. So now for simplifying, we first have to multiply every single one that we have, all the terms that we have with 4x. So 3x squared times 4x is basically equal to 12x to the power of 3, and this is because we just do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then we bring in both x's, and then the x squared plus x1 equals to the power of 3, plus, then we have to do 9 times 4x. Since we just have one variable, it's just going to be the power of 1, so then we're going to have 36x. And if we do 5 times 4, then we get 20. And then since there's x to the power 1, x to the power 1, then we're going to have x to the power of 2. So once we just multiplied everything, we have this. 12x to the power of 3 plus 36x minus 20x to the power of 2. And basically now we just have to simplify them from ascending to descending. So basically we have to bring in the highest power, and then we have to order it from the highest to the lowest. So in this example, we already have the 12x to the power of 3 is the highest because that's the highest term inside of our polynomial. So we bring that in first. And our next biggest powered term is 20x to the power of 2 because after the 3, then we have the 2. So we just bring in 20x to the power of 2. So now our equation looks like this. 12x to the power of 3 minus 20x to the power of 2. And finally, we can just bring in that 36x. And then our final equation will look like this. 12x to the power of 3 minus 20x to the power of 2 plus 36x. And just like that, we learned how to multiply polynomials. And now we're going to be moving on to dividing polynomials. So if we remember in the second problem, we needed to find the height of shape 2 using the division of polynomials. And in this problem, the area was given a is equal to 3x squared plus 6x, and the base was given b equals to 3x. So let's get started with solving this problem. So our first step is to just take our area formula, which is area is equal to 1/2 times base times height. And now we need to find it. We need to make this formula in a way so that we can find the height. And to do this, since we have area is equal to 1/2 times base times height, we're basically just going to cross multiply the 1/2 with the area. And then after that, we're going to have base times height equals to 2 area. And then after that, we're just going to bring the base to the right side. And then we're going to have h is equal to 2a over b. So now with this, we can find our height for this triangle. So our second step is to input our values. So since we have h equals to 2a over b, so what we're going to do now is that we already have the 2 outside of the bracket. Then we're going to open up our bracket. Then we're going to put the area inside, which is 3x squared plus 6x. And then we're going to close off the bracket, and then we're going to divide that by 3x. So our third step is to first distribute the 2 to every single term inside for the area. So since we have the 2 outside, just like what we did for the multiplication, we also have to do for the division. So we're just going to multiply every single term with the 2. So now our equation will look like this. 2 times 3x squared plus 2 times 6x divided by 3x. So in this distributive one, we're also going to be simplifying it as well right now. So 2 times 3x squared will equal to 6x squared, and then plus 12x because 2 times 6x will equal to 12x. And then we still have to divide by 3 at the end. And now for our final step, we're going to divide everything inside by 3. So now what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to divide every single term inside by 3. 6x squared divided by 3x plus 12x divided by 3x. And 6x squared divided by 3x is equal to 2x. And then we're going to do the plus. Then 12x divided by 3x is equal to 4. And just like that, we solve for the height of this triangle. And that's basically it for multiplying and dividing polynomials. And now we're going to be moving on with our Python code. So for our Python code today, I have 4 things that we're going to be doing. So we're going to be first solving the same problems for multiplying and dividing polynomials from the beginning of this video, and then we're also going to be plotting the curve on a graph as well for both the polynomials. So this is just the first code, which is for the multiplying polynomials. And if we remember our landscape problem from the beginning of this video, we had the length and the width given, and then we needed to find out the final polynomial for this. And basically what this program will do here is that it will auto-generate the answer for our polynomial, and we wouldn't have to solve it. So since I already have all the code here, you guys can just start copying it down, and I'll just explain what each line of code does. So at the top, we're going to be first importing NumPy, and we're going to be using NumPy for our help in math. So if we look down here, we're going to be needing to multiply both of our polynomials, and to do this, we're just going to use NumPy. And then next, we're going to be creating our first polynomial, which is polynomial 1. We're just going to name it as polynomial 1, the variable, and then we're going to assign it this array here. And inside the array, we're going to have 9, -5, 3. And basically, in Python, what it likes to do is it likes to have everything backwards. So if you remember from the beginning of this video, our landscape length, for our landscape length, we had 3x squared minus 5x plus 9. So basically what Python likes to do is that it just likes to do it backwards. So instead of having 3x squared first, we're going to have 3x squared last, and then the minus 5x is still going to stay in the middle, and then the plus 9 will come first. So it just likes to go constant first. And same thing with this one here, poly 2, our width basically, and our width was 4x. So we first need our constant, because if we have it here, then we're also going to need to put it here. So our constant will be 0, then we're going to need our 4x, and then we're going to have 0x to the power of 2. And we just need to fill in these zeros so that Python will understand that we're doing it, multiplying these two together. And then next, this is where all the multiplying actually happens. And then we're just going to be creating a new variable called poly, and then we're just going to assign it as numpy.polynomial.polynomial.polymul, and then in bracket poly1, comma poly2. So this basically just multiplies both the polynomial 1 and the polynomial 2. And once it multiplied it by itself, then we're just going to be printing out the poly right here, and then we should be able to see the answer of this equation here. So let's just run this to see how this looks like. So if we just run this here, so we get 0.36.-20. And then 12. So if we remember our answer for what we got while multiplying and dividing polynomials, so our actual answer was 12x cubed minus 20x squared plus 36x. And since Python does it backwards, we have to look from the constant size. And since we don't have a constant in that example, Python automatically just put the 0 for the constant, and then it did 36 because it has 36x there. So Python just put 36 second, and then it did minus 20x squared, so that's why the minus 20 is over here, and then it finally did 12x cubed, so that's why it's here. Here you don't see the powers, so you just have to see what order it's going in. So that's basically how we multiply our polynomials and get the answer for it as well. So now we're going to be moving on to our dividing of polynomial. So if you remember from the beginning of our video, we had we needed to find the height of a triangle, and the area was already given as 3x squared plus 6x, and the base was given as 3x. So if you remember, after distributing our polynomial for our first polynomial, which is 3x squared plus 6x, once we distributed the 2 to both of them, we had our answer as 6x squared plus 12x. So that's what we're going to be adding here today. And if we remember from our multiplying the polynomial as well, we had to first put the constant first. So since we have no constant here, we're going to have to put plus 0. So we have plus 0, then we have comma, and then our next biggest one is 12x. So then we put 12 here, and then our third biggest one was 6x squared, so then we just add 6x there. So that was basically just our first polynomial after multiplying by 2 and distributing the 2 to both of them. And then our second polynomial is really obvious, it's just the 3x. So our constant was 0, then we had 3x, and then we have 0 to the power of 2. And yeah, this is basically just our second polynomial here. And then here we're going to be making a quotient and a remainder, and then we're going to make it equal to this numpy.polynomial.polynomial.polydiv, and dividing the polynomial 1 and the polynomial 2. And then we're going to be printing out our quotient and our remainder here. So this is basically just the code for us to divide our polynomials, and let's just run this to see how it works. So in our answer we get 420. So if you remember our answer, after dividing everything, we had 2x plus 4. So we first have to bring in the 4 because it's the constant with the power of 0. So we brought in 4. So that's what the code did. And then we have 2. So we had 2x was the biggest. And instead of bringing the 0 over here, the code brought the 0 here for the remainder. So in fact, this should be 420, but our code just brought the 0 down here. But that's basically just it for our division of polynomials inside of Python. So now we're going to be moving on to our second part of our code. And the second part of our code, we're going to be basically just plotting the same equations that we just had, multiplying and dividing them. And we're going to be plotting them on a graph to see how they actually look like. So basically, we're just going to be creating the curve for them. So this is our code here, and I'm just going to explain it. So in the top, we're going to be importing two libraries to help us with our plot. So we're importing NumPy again, and then matplotlib helps us to actually plot our stuff and create our graph and everything like that. So once we covered this, now we're going to move down to here. So we have our x and y coordinates. So for x, we have the np.linespace, and then we have these So we can skip this. We don't really need this right here. This is just for our grid. It helps us to actually like space out our grid and stuff, and everything happens here. So if you remember from the beginning part of our video, our final answer was 12x to the power of 3 minus 20x squared plus 36x. And this was for our multiplying the polynomials. So basically what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be writing that here, and it's going to plot it. So we're just going to be writing y is equal to 12 times, and when we do Python, to power a number we have to do the double multiplication sign. So I just put it in brackets here so it'll be easier for us to see and it's not such a big mess. But we're basically just doing 12 times x to the power of 3. Then we're doing minus 20 times x to the power of 2. Then we're doing plus 36 times x. And this is basically just our polynomial, and we're going to be plotting that. And then all this line here is just to help us to style our grid, so to make our boxes look neater, to make everything look cleaner overall. So this is basically what all of this does here. And then down here we're just going to be plotting both our x and y, and we're going to be showing our grid as well. So that's basically just it for our code, and now let's run it to see how our code looks like. So this is basically how our plot looks like. It's just a line here, and this line actually represents a lot. We can see the curve, and it helps us a lot as well. So if you remember our landscape problem, so if our variable x was equal to 1, so I could just look at the 1 here, and then I would just go all the way up to the y-axis and see what the value would be. And it looks like it's around 25 to maybe 30. So that's basically what I can assume for 1. And if I look at 2, if x was equal to 2, then we would have around 75. So this curve really helps a lot, and you can see every single value as well. So that's basically just our polynomial of multiplication, and now we're going to be doing our division one as well. So I have all the code here for our division one, and it's basically this the same thing. We're just changing up the y here. So since I already explained everything else, I'm just going to explain this here. So since our final answer for our division one was 2x plus 4, that's all we're doing. We're just doing 2 times x plus 4. And yeah, let's just run this to see how it looks like. So let's just rerun this. And it's basically just a straight line. This is a linear equation, so it's just a straight line. So if x equals to 0, then y will equal to 4. If x equals to 2, then y will equal to 8, because the intercept is plus 4. So that's basically just our second line here. And that's basically it for our video today.